Welcome to The Life of Hair. My name is James Atkinson. Thank you very much for choosing to join into this week's episode. Now, in this week's episode, we're going to be covering a technique that I've talked about before. I've got loads of tutorials on similar techniques, but actually it's going to be a hybrid fusion video today where we're going to be looking at darkening a blonde without prepigmentation, and we're going to be also looking at how to create dimension and beautiful tonality in just what could be a very boring brown colour if you're not too careful. And I hate colouring people's hair just one shade of brown. They could do that at home. We'll talk a little bit more about that in this video. If you've enjoyed this style of content and you're new here and this is the first time you've seen this video, hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. If you've been here before and you love the things that I do, then please leave a comment, hit that thumbs up button. Supporting the channel makes a big difference for you to do those things. And if you're really loving The Life of Hair, then I've got my digital hair academy down in the description. Go and check it out. If you want any more information, please contact me directly. Have a great week, guys, and I'll see you next Sunday for another one. So our starting point, as you can see here, is a grown out set of highlights. It's been a long time since my client had her colour maintained, hence why she wanted something a little bit more low key in her life. She's going through some big house renovations, so money isn't as free-flowing as it was previously. Now, the technique that we're going to use, I've talked about and done similar adaptations of this technique many times before. And in terms of the actual application, it's very straightforward, simple root technique that we're sort of overstretching through to where the hair turns blonde. So we're covering the natural hair and then we're overlapping the blonde as we travel through the sections. Now, one thing that I will say about this technique is that because of the nature of the second phase of the application, you don't have to be amazing at root blending. But as you can see, I've root blended it anyway, using the technique that I've talked about many times with my comb, holding it at 45 degrees. I've got videos all about that. In fact, there's quite a few already, so I'm not going to go back through that. I'm just going to show you the technique that I'm going to use at this point in time. So we've taken section in the back here, always start in the back because we can always rinse the back out if we need to. And then we've subdivided and weaved a very deep weave. That's why we've come about 50% of the way down the hair to do our weave. And that means that we get a section of hair in our weave that travels all the way through the section. So if you look at my weave, it's kind of divided the whole subsection we've taken into two. Now, the colour that we're going to use here on this second section is a level 8. And I'll talk about the tonal choices in just a second. So we've got a level 6 on the root area, of which we're going to take through as a low light or dimension. And then we've got a level 8. Now, the rules of contrast that I work along is that if you've got 2 shades of contrast, it's pretty subtle, but it is there. And you'll see from the end result that is very apparent in this particular end result too. But the technique is incredibly straightforward, guys, and it just repeats itself all the way through this back section. And I'm going to show you the front section because obviously the front section is a little different. Now, it's really important that you keep your hands clean in these techniques. So have a spare towel, one that is either you can dispose of like I've got here. These are scrummy disposable towels, or alternatively an old cleaning towel to hand. And the depth and the thickness of your weaves wants to be reasonably chunky in most cases, especially if you're using low contrast colour results, because ultimately if you're using low contrast colour results, it's going to be very difficult for you to differentiate the 2 shades when there's only 2 shades of contrast. So 6 for our dark colour and 8 for our light colour. And we just continue through the technique
as is. Now, in this second half, I'll talk to you a little bit about colour choices. I've done a video on pre-pigmentation before and things like that, but obviously we haven't filled this hair or haven't pre-pigged this hair before we started. We've just gone straight in with our technique. So what we've done is, although we've used a 6N for our root colour and also for the low light through the ends, it's still a 6N. In that 6N is some CB, copper brown, just to anchor that colour and stop it looking flat and sludgy. We want it to be cool, but we don't want it to be really, really cool. So it's really, really important that we utilise some of the pre-existing undertone within our mixture formulation. Now, in this particular instance, I used approximately 1/5 of my mixing ratio. So let's add 50 grams of colour. I'd have 40 grams of the N, and I would have 10 grams of the CB shade. And then with my level 8 colour, well, I haven't worried about that at all. I've just used a level 8 N, and then I haven't filled it with a copper, but I have put a capful of 9AA. Now that's not ash, that is amber, which is coppery, but on a level 9, it's more of a strawberry blonde. It's a very, very subtle colour indeed, and it's just to ensure that I don't get that kind of flat, sludgy level 8, maybe verging on a slightly khaki result with my secondary colour. So I've not done anything specific, just literally a capful into 50 gram mixing ratio, a drop in the ocean really, but just enough to kind of give me that little bit of insurance that the result's going to come out really, really beautiful, and we haven't got flat, lifeless looking hair that we've just darkened down. Now, one thing that you should always tell your client is, that when you're going from blonde to dark, that the longevity is not going to be there, especially in the first application. So make sure you don't set yourself up for a fail there and they come back in a few weeks' time and they're like, oh, it didn't last very long. Tell them it's not going to last very long. Be honest, and they'll appreciate you for it in the long run. And I didn't want it to last long because I had a feeling that this lady might go back blonde at some point. So here we can see the finished result, and you can get a feel for what I'm saying about the low contrast result as a finished product, and it's got a really nice kind of multi-dimensional feel to the hair. And it looks like you put way, way, way more effort in than I actually did. If you said to somebody, this is a 4 or 5 hour balayage, probably people would believe me. But no, it's a very simple, quick technique. It took no more than 40 minutes to apply. And it's an absolute winner, Ryan book. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again in the next one.